So there was a lot of interesting video game related news this week, but of course, one of the topics, because why wouldn't it be, was the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, of course, we didn't get that Nintendo Switch 2 presentation like so many Nintendo YouTubers were prophesizing. Spoiler alert, now they're all saying it's going to be on October, which is what RGT said from the jump, but we did get some interesting leaks in terms of some potential renders, pictures of the system allegedly, and the alleged specs leak, which other websites have come along and said that they have heard similar things about. Now, I talked about this in a previous video, but today's video is going to be a little different because I want to look at the alleged specs and really pose a question to the audience. Is this enough for you to want to buy the new platform? Is this enough in the grand scheme of things about what is available on the market now and what's coming out on the market very soon? So I feel like it's a topic that there is no right or wrong answer with, but it's something I do want to explore. Before we get into all of that, though, I do want to remind you guys, because this is my channel and I want my book to sell well, that the Art of N64 Wrestling Games book is now available. You can get it signed over on Castlemania Games for $20, signed with an exclusive t-shirt that is going fast for $40, or if you prefer, you could pick it up on Amazon or Kindle. It is $20 for a paperback on Amazon, $15 for a Kindle edition. Support the boy out. If you do decide to buy it, please leave a review. Now let's get into this topic at hand here. We're once again going to go back to the initial tweet that we went into when we were talking about this. Well, initially, I guess I would say. And that, of course, is the write-up coming to us from the homie Kami. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. He's one of the few people that likes me on the platform. So these alleged specs, I want to put them in a realistic setting, in like a real-world setting, as far as what you could potentially expect in terms of performance, and then kind of figure out how that lines up with other platforms that are currently available and will be available in the future. So at handheld, it's right above a PS4 baseline before DLSS. In docked mode, it's between a PS4 Pro and an Xbox Series S before DLSS, with more modern hardware than the former. So in terms of raw power and what they're going to be able to do in terms of replicating what you would assume it would be based on what it's on the market now, in handheld mode, you're looking at PS4 performance, PS4 Pro, in docked mode, leaning more towards the Xbox Series S. Now, the PlayStation 4, I think, is a very interesting comparison in handheld mode, because you do have something to kind of base that off of when it comes to things like a Steam Deck. You could play Spider-Man games on your Steam Deck, and they actually look and run fantastic. So if that's the kind of performance I'm getting with my Nintendo games, because let's be realistic, most people are buying Nintendo platforms to play first-party Nintendo games or third-party exclusive Nintendo games. There's not a whole lot of third-party sales that happen. Now, yes, people like me tend to check them out because they're interested to see how these games perform, especially compared to the other versions of the games. But at the end of the day, it's Nintendo software that sells Nintendo hardware. And thinking about the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro, and even the Xbox Series S, there are some very graphically impressive games that are on those systems. You gotta realize something. We are now at the point where Sony has stopped making PS4 versions of PlayStation 5 games. You had a lot of cross-generational games. Horizon Forbidden West was a cross-generational game that ran on the PlayStation 4. Gran Turismo 7 ran on the PlayStation 4. Of course, you had other games like God of War Ragnarok, PlayStation 4 edition. These games were really pushing the limits of what the PS4 could do. And of course, the PlayStation 4 versions of these games also benefited from these versions being available because the PlayStation 4 Pro was a bit more powerful. But one thing I want to kind of sort of focus in on here is this: both of these analogies are before DLSS. So this is just in terms of what it could do with no sort of DLSS. And if you know anything about DLSS, you would know that DLSS allows for sharper images and increased frame rates in these games. So if by a baseline we're doing a game, let's just say, you know, a God of War Ragnarok style game. I'm sure I have a trailer that I can put up over this, so that'll help keep things easy. If you're able to get similar visual style in terms of raw power before any artificial upscaling, like, I think that's pretty impressive. once again, we can go back to a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally to kind of compare what sort of performance those systems do. Now, many people anticipate that there will be updated versions of these systems that are more powerful and could do more things. ROG, of course, already released one that was an incremental upgrade, but still impressive nonetheless. But even if you strip away that sort of stuff, the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally are absolutely fantastic with running some higher end PC games. If companies are able to leverage that sort of power on those systems without having any sort of DLSS really running on those games, I think the sky could potentially be the limit with the Nintendo Switch successor if the companies are willing to utilize the additional tools that are available to them. Look, I know everyone hates artificial intelligence, but you can't stop it. College Football 25 by EA, they did the stadiums with artificial intelligence because they didn't want to make 100 different stadiums with 100 different types of fans in them and all the logos and stuff like that. They came out and said that themselves. So companies are going to be able to embrace different sorts of tools in order to make their games look and run better on the Nintendo platform. But really, what's the more exciting thing for me is, what is Nintendo going to do with this additional power? Nintendo is usually the king of making the most out of what they have, and you've seen that time and time again. You can go back to the GameCube era and take a look at some of those games that still hold up extremely well when you upscale them or play them via progressive scan mode. Games like F-Zero, Star Fox Adventures, hell, even Super Mario Sunshine, even though it's a terrible game, it still looks absolutely gorgeous. And there's a reason for that, because Nintendo, like I said, is able to get the most out of their hardware. So when it comes to just raw technical specifications, is it necessarily fair to look at the specs themselves and then deduce what can and can't come to the system? I don't really think so, because with a game like Doom 2016, which released in 2017, a game like Doom Eternal, that should not have ran on a tablet from 2014 technology. But the companies managed to do it. Panic Button managed to make it happen. Scrolling on down here, you can see that the RAM is slower than the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S in the speed department, but has more capacity than a Series S, which is, once again, pretty impressive. Should have about 10.5 to 11 gigs of RAM available to games going by the Switch One's RAM allotment for its OS. We're at the point of diminishing returns in terms of a lot of graphics. That's why a lot of these games that you see nowadays, you got to look for the details. Look at the PS5 Pro situation. You're having to look for things like ray tracing and additional sharpness on things in the background. It's cool, but I also feel like it's a niche marketplace. Most people just want to play games that look good, feel good, and are fun. And if Nintendo's able to manage that, which with this sort of power, they should be more than able to do that, I think that's going to trump any sort of, crazy ray tracing stuff at the end of the day. You got to remember, the most graphically intensive thing that we have seen thus far this generation was the Matrix demo. And the Matrix demo was allegedly running on Nintendo Switch 2 hardware behind closed doors at Game Developer Conference last year. If they're able to get those sorts of visual fidelity on this system, that's going to be an absolute game changer. There is nothing that has came out that has looked as good as that did. And that was just a small technical demo. I get it. It was very curated. It was something that was supposed to lean into the graphics. So it's going to be something like that. But still, if something like that is able to run on the system's hardware, then what can't run on the system's hardware? The one thing I want to kind of close with, like I said, is I'm not necessarily talking about what's available on the marketplace now, but the future, because that's something that a lot of people are a bit concerned with. We already know that Xbox is talking about new hardware. There's rumors that they're going to launch the Xbox Series successor in 2026. PlayStation, of course, is releasing the PS5 Pro. There's already rumors about the PlayStation 6 having 2 systems on a chips, and all of this sort of crazy stuff, potentially 2027, 2028. Assuming that the Nintendo Switch successor comes out in 2025, is a year or two on the market going to be long enough for it to put a foothold into things and, sort of still be able to do what these revision systems are indeed doing? Like I said, it really boils down to diminishing returns with this stuff. Will the games still run on the Switch hardware, the Switch successor hardware? Yeah. Will they have the bells and whistles of the other games? running on something like a PlayStation 6 or an Xbox Series, what the hell do you call it? Series Z or something like that? Like, no, you're not going to have the ray tracing and stuff like that, but you still get the core game experience. I think many people are just afraid that there's going to be a sizable gap like what we saw with Nintendo Switch versions versus a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series version of the game, where it was noticeable right from the jump. It wasn't the devil in the details type of situation. I don't think that that is necessarily going to be the case, because the technology that is allegedly going to be in the Nintendo Switch successor is far more versatile than what we saw with the standard Nintendo Switch. You have to remember something about this system. The Wii U was a failure. The Nintendo Switch system was a risk. This was not something that was a surefire success. Hindsight is, of course, 2020. But back in 2016, 2017, there was no way to really determine whether or not this was going to be an absolute dominating success like we saw it ended up being in terms of things like hardware and software sales. There was that feeling that Nintendo might not know what the hell they're doing, and they might not be able to get out of this next generation if this generation acts and sort of plays out like the Wii U did. Now, of course, it didn't play out that way, and now everyone sings the praises of the system and like, oh, I always knew this was the greatest idea. But that's total BS. Even some of your favorite Nintendo YouTubers have privated their videos bashing the system. Me personally, I won't do that because I don't care. I was proven wrong with it. And I think that that's what this system is really going to be about. If you just look at it from a raw technical perspective thing, yes, it is going to be weaker than what is on the marketplace, and it's going to be weaker about what comes out in the future. But really, when it comes to power, it's not about how much you have, it's what you do with it. If that was the case, the 3DO would have been the most successful system ever, right? Because the 3DO was far more powerful than the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo was. Was the 3DO a success, or was it a complete failure? I think the answer is crystal clear. I can't even talk right now. But those are just my thoughts on this sort of thing. You know, like I said, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. If you look at this spec sheet and you're like, this stinks, it's not going to be good. Like, I don't understand that mentality. It's like being excited for a game before you see it. Like, you got to see the thing in action, or writing off a game. Like, a lot of people are writing off Marathon because of what's happening at Sony right now. But it's like, you haven't seen the game. Maybe the game ends up being really good. Maybe the system ends up being really good. Maybe it exceeds your expectations. So to write something off before you even really know anything concrete about it is just so short and sighted. It's ridiculous. But hey, that's what the internet culture has created with this. But I want to know, is this enough for you? Do you think this will be enough to get heavy hitter third-party games? And how will Nintendo utilize this power? You know, we already know that they said that gaps may be longer in the next generation with the increase in technology for when they're releasing games. Will they have stuff to supplement that in the meantime? Will it be remakes and remasters and stuff like that? And if so, how are the Nintendo fans going to act that way when they're all making fun of PlayStation fans right now? That's why your boy keeps it neutral. He talks about a lot of Nintendo stuff, but at the end of the day, bro, I play everything. Give me your thoughts in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. I'm genuinely interested to hear your guys' feedback on this. Is this enough for you? Do you think this is enough to compete? And what sort of success will the system see? And as always, thank you guys for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, share, hit the bell as well. Check out the book. Links in the description box down below, pal. Leave a 5-star Amazon review if you do pick it up over on Amazon. But I make more money if you pick it up on Castlemania, so pick it up there. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.